Hello there. Welcome to another Seeing Clearly with me, Charlotte Giblin. And I want to keep talking about the way that my art practice helped to totally transform my personal life and guided me through a great deal of my fear and anxiety. So I think it can be really helpful if you consciously understand certainly the practices that are really helpful and why they're helpful, and what aspect of your behavior, your experience of life that they are helping to heal. Because then you can focus more specifically on the problem, or just be aware of really trying to practice the solution more and more. And for me, I mean, looking at this picture here, so I did this when I was 18, and I'd been drawing a lot. So this was not the first time I'd ever picked up a pencil. I'd developed a really keen eye for accuracy, for understanding how light and shade within any kind of object sort of click clack together. I trained my eye to see all of the different ways that amazing jigsaw of light and shade would come together in a realistic way. It took a lot of years of practice, but for me, the reason why I wanted to practice and focus on it was because as soon as I was drawing and really looking at the object in front of me, all of my other worries just vanished, and I would always have music on in the background and it would transport me somewhere else, and I'd be focused very carefully. My eye and my brain and my hand were all working together, but it overrode any kinds of anxiety. And it also, working in a realistic manner, gave me an opportunity to control the world. I could really work at making something look the way I wanted it to, in a quite a different way to imaginative painting or drawing, or the many imaginative worlds that I've occupied with my imagination ever since I was a child. These alternative realities I can pop into whenever I want to. This was a sort of structured control which helped enormously. And I think it's really important to understand that, for me, it was really important to understand that I had this underlying issue there, that I needed to control some of the elements in my world. Certainly from a relationship perspective, if you saw the video about the painting of my mum, you'll know that there were some emotional issues and behavioural issues at home. And I was very much the mature child who was helping the parents. And this gave me an escape in a way that I recognized with hindsight was really important. So if you know that you're escaping into your creative world for a specific reason, if you are consciously escaping some kind of fear or worry, if you can work out what that fear is, then of course you can backtrack and try and do some therapy, some work which will help you override it and overcome it. But in the meantime, just being aware how much your art practice and that focus is helping, that's all you really need to know about any kind of drawing. So I've spoken before about the importance of understanding what you're looking at, why it's really key to be able to see any kind of object with honest eyes. It's the root of the whole seeing clearly concept. And from being able to do that as an artist, to then take that skill into personal life and slowly turning the mirror back towards myself to see with more honest eyes, no matter how painful that was, why I was behaving in certain ways, how my reactions were negatively affecting my life path. Being able to use my art practice as an aid for my own personal development has been absolutely remarkable. But it's becoming conscious of it at some stage, about the why you're doing art and how much it's helping you, and making sure that you continue to do the art because it's obviously you're drawn to it. You want to do it. You're trying to express something, or you're wanting to escape or create your own world. All of these reasons are just fantastic, and there's nothing which is right or wrong, of course, in the creative or artistic world. But when I teach, when I talk about using an art practice to, well, certainly to improve as an artist, but also to use it then as some kind of self-help and self-care tool, I think it's really important to learn the foundation skills of light and dark, of seeing what's really there, of observational drawing. And that for me is the first stage of 3 steps in freeing yourself and creating a totally different life as an artist, as an art practitioner, but also from a personal perspective and health and well-being and everything that could possibly impact you positively or negatively. And the first stage is seeing clearly. It's being able to understand what you're looking at, being able to have a detached perspective and really see how the setup, the still life, the whatever it is you're drawing or painting, how all of the objects within the environment link together to create a whole picture, how all of the pieces of the jigsaw of light and shade fit together realistically. That can take quite a long time, but there's a lot of benefit to slowing down and looking. I would always say to my students before doing any kind of still life drawing, just spend the first 10 minutes just looking, seeing how, actually it takes a while for your brain to slow down from all of the movement around you and all of the distractions to actually just sit still and let everything slow down, and then you focus in on the focal point of your drawing subject, and then you can open the blinkers a little bit to see the environment around the focal point. And just sitting and looking is a really, really helpful practice. Now, from an actual drawing perspective, if you saw this as the card at the start of the video and are quite excited about being able to draw some fabric, I do actually have on my YouTube channel a totally free video about that fabric drawing. And I talk through that in a lot of detail about how to create the effects of the folds, and more importantly, what you're seeing and why you're creating certain marks. And on my website, charlottegiblin.com, under the courses tab, you can download the photograph, which I used to create this drawing from, and you can draw along with me and just get a lot of tips and techniques for how to create that kind of realistic drawing. But I want to focus more on the ways that our art practice and this kind of realistic drawing can assist with problem solving and any sorts of emotional issues or fear or anxiety, that any kind of practical problems that arise. And it's remarkable really how much the practices within drawing and the techniques and the skills that you learn as an artist, how much they carry over, how applicable they are to life skills. I mean, is it really that surprising? Maybe it is, but again, when you become conscious of it. So this setup, I had obviously folds of fabric, there were scarves. I can remember they were all over a clothes line in my bedroom when I was 18 and doing the art course. And the first aspect of any kind of complex drawing, and I talk about this in many of my tutorial videos, is simplifying what you're looking at. in the same way that we can become completely overwhelmed by an issue or a problem that we're faced with emotionally. And it can sometimes feel so overwhelming that we don't even know where to start, and so we just don't deal with the issue at hand, run away from it, react badly to it, bury our heads, just carry on because we can't deal with it. Now, I'm a list person. I love making lists and then ticking things off the list as I go through, so it feels like a real sense of accomplishment. But with any kind of problem and with any kind of drawing, if you can break it down into small bite-sized sections and just deal with them one at a time or work through them quite systematically, obviously it makes the problem much easier to deal with. This is so obvious and not new information at all, but being able to weave that together more consciously with your art practice and understanding how the techniques you're using to improve your drawing can also carry over into improving your relationships and the way you feel about life, I think that's really important to point out. So the first thing that I would do with something complex like this, if I was looking at a photograph or if I had this set up in front of me, I'd always say, reduce the amount of information that you're looking at. And I talk about this in a lot of my tutorial videos with putting pieces of paper over your photograph, using a grid. Absolutely. And whatever works for you to be able to see the information more easily, to break it down into bite-sized chunks. So maybe if I was looking at this whole life problem in front of me and just then had to deal with these valleys, it suddenly feels a lot easier. And if I reduced it even further, I've only got a few lines, a few areas of light and dark to focus on. And then I can give all my attention to that section without having to address or think about all of the other issues that are happening over there. So with this sort of three-part idea of how your art can really help with your transformation of life and your well-being, the first section being seeing clearly, being able to understand what you're looking at and why you are drawing it in a certain way. And I don't mean your motivation for doing the drawing. I mean what you're seeing, understanding what it is you're looking at, the change of direction with the light and the shade, the change of direction with the object, the texture that's being described by the light and shade. Everything comes down to the relationship between light and shade. And if you're looking at color, it's still about light and shade. It's the texture is described by the way the light and shade meet. And a smooth texture, of course, would have a very soft, graded meeting of the light and shade. And if it's something very fluffy or rocky, or there's some real grit to the texture, where the light and the shade meet, you'll see all kinds of undulations and lumps and bumps. It's really helpful just to look around the room at the smooth wall, and maybe you have a textured ceiling, or maybe where the wall changes direction and it meets the door, perhaps there's an extra shadow. And just looking at how light and shade in your immediate environment describes the surface texture. So anything which is completely smooth, like a piece of paper, of course doesn't have any shadows on it because there is no change of surface area to create shade from a single light source. So the first part of the mirror of using your art practice to look at your own life path is being able to step back and see what's there as honestly as possible. And then the second part takes a lot of time, and that's the practice and the development of the skills and the confidence. So within art, once you have learnt to see the jigsaw of light and shade, Then you have to learn how to translate it onto paper. And there are so many different methods, and whatever works for you, grids, bits of paper, measuring, I encourage all of those methods. This is about you learning to see and then getting the satisfaction from being able to create the final result that you want. Developing different techniques with pencil, trying out different media, just really sort of having fun, experimenting a little bit in a very safe zone of your drawing. And that's really important, to spend time, even if it's a little bit a day, just doing a bit of sketching, working on some shading, or set aside time once a week so you can continue to develop your skills and gain more confidence then. And because the final part is about letting go. And that is the hardest section, because it involves taking more risks. And I think if you're talking about an art practice and a painting practice, maybe the risk taking starts to move into different styles of work, perhaps away from realism, which is traditionally very popular with other people. If you see the #1 video I did in this series, it discusses why is realism so popular, or asks the question. And I talk about different styles of work. And most people learn how to draw realistically, which I think is very important, and then can expand and break the rules, if you like. And I certainly thought for the longest time that anybody working in an abstract style did so because they didn't know how to draw or paint realistically, until I tried to paint in an abstract manner myself and realized that without the structure and rules of realism, how difficult and challenging it is having carte blanche to do what you want to do and to really let go and experiment. So that is a very important part of your art practice later on, when you feel confident with, if you're painting, with color mixing skills, with your observational skills as a drawing student. And also part of the letting go umbrella is letting go of people's negative judgment about you, because we can all feel such pressure when we're doing art to impress other people, to please people, which is partly why realism is so popular for students who are starting out. And it's partly why I love bringing out drawings like this that I did such a long time ago, because I know that they can have an impact, and I feel really proud of how hard I worked at that. But it's great for my ego, because I'll get compliments, and who doesn't like getting compliments and feeling good about something that they've achieved? There's nothing wrong with that. But it becomes an issue if it stops you from trying to experiment or wanting to take your art practice in a different direction. If you're holding yourself back because you're afraid of what people are going to say if they raise an eyebrow or say things like, and I've had every possible variation of negative comment as I've expanded into different styles of work. But the whole, oh, that's interesting. I preferred what you did before with the scarves and the fabric. We can be really affected by other people's negative judgment. So almost like the final stage of an art practice is being able to feel like you're free from other people's judgment. And it's probably taken me about 20 years to get to that point, but I was working very closely in conjunction with really delving into my past behavior and using it as a self-help tool, and really digging in and exploring all of the reasons why I was finding other people's negative feedback so challenging. And it's also really important to start learning to trust your own intuition, your gut instinct more, which was a huge part of my journey, and my decision-making processes have shifted from just being up here to a balance of gut instinct and logical thinking. And I'm trying to trust my gut instinct more. But your art practice, once it goes from, say, the natural joy of just wanting to focus on drawing or whatever aspect of art you're doing, and the logical side of understanding how to improve and practicing at it and using the two different heart centers of your brain and heart center, to then taking all of those skills and doing with them what you want. Letting go with that restriction that we so often feel is upon us from other people's judgment and from all of the expectations and restrictions that we have or we feel we have in our daily routine and in our responsibilities and our relationships with other people and the roles that we create for ourselves. So this is so important. It's really exciting to consciously understand how your art practice is feeding into your life in so many positive ways. And if you can just pause to appreciate that and appreciate the creative enthusiasm, the gifts that you've been given, because, oh my goodness, if you have an interest in art, you already see the world in a different way, and you're so lucky. We are so lucky to have this interest, to have this focus, which can take us away from, it provides an escape, but such a richly rewarding escape with results that are tangible. We're really lucky to do that. But being aware of having more self-awareness about how and why that your art practice is important to you, and how it can be used to benefit you, break free from any sense of negative box that you might feel that you've trapped yourself into, or using it as an escape when you feel really angry or upset about something, and instead of lashing out at someone else, you channel it into some painting or throwing some paint around or doing some really hard sketching with charcoal. And it's a really good way, it's a really good therapy. And you don't need to go to a therapist to know that, but pausing and appreciating how it's helping you, as I did. And then I was able to take that self-awareness even a few steps further, and it really has completely transformed the way I feel. Totally lost any sense of anxiety or fear that I used to carry with me, and have a completely different approach to myself and to other people, which is based in trust and love, which I never thought I would get to. And all because of learning how to see clearly and look at fabric from an early age. So take all of that, do with it what you want, but most importantly, keep on enjoying your art practice and get better, and it will open so many doors for you. Have fun with it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.